Welcome to a football show here, of course, at the Cast Collective Studio, live at the Cast Collective Studio. Let me see if I can get this right. On Music Row in the heart of Nashville.
You did it.
I spent a lot of time thinking about what the armpit of Nashville would be last week. I have no answers for you because I don't want to upset anybody.
It'd be East Nashville.
Oh, come on, dude. It's all right. We wear deodorant in East Nashville. It's fine.
We'll see.
It's a little crunchy over there. That's fair. That's Zach. I'm Braden. Welcome. Turn on all the notifications, of course. Special thanks to our title sponsor, the Kingston Group. BuildKG.com is the website if you're going to make any big decisions about your house. You know the drill. Have a conversation. That's all we ask. It's not a whole lot. So if you're supporting the show, we do appreciate it. Make sure you support them as well. Again, that's the Kingston Group. BuildKG.com. Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm.
That's it.
It's a firm.
It is.
A firm. So have a conversation with them. Okay. F Words Pod. Make sure you check that out. Great episode with you and Lebowski this week. A lot of F words on that show.
Yeah, it wasn't the most F words we've had on the show, but I would maybe put it top 15ish.
The power rankings of most F words. Your F word.
We should have an F word counter somewhere, kind of like Stat Boy.
Dude, you really should. The F word efficiency work rate was excellent this week. A lot of good rants from Zach, so go check that out. We're going to talk about asthma gate. I guess we've got to add gate to everything to make it like a thing that we can talk about. Traylon Burks, the next chapter in this ridiculous story that has no real purpose.
I blame your people.
My people?
Your people. The media.
The media?
Okay. They are your people.
They're my people.
In this instance, it's like when your kid does something. What has your son or what has your daughter done to?
Yeah, well, it's fine. You can blame our people. What do you mean by you people? So we're going to get into that. Well, I think I have a tongue-in-cheek theory about what the Titans are doing to our people.
Your people.
To my people. We're going to get into Deshaun Watson a little bit today, but not necessarily the details of a very kind of sordid and disgusting story, but more about like your role as a fan. When you have people, because we do this across it's not just sports, Zach. We do this with musicians. We do this with politicians. We do this with actors. We forgive a lot of stuff of people because they give us joy in another area. So can you compartmentalize? And what's the role of the fan in a situation like Deshaun Watson, where he's clearly a scumbag, but like Browns fans
dead behind the eyes. I mean, like you watch the deposition, dude, he is weird. Dead behind the eyes.
That's not how he was either before. This is right. All since
Well, he's got an addiction and disease. We'll get into
it. So a lot of, I think, hopefully a unique conversation about Deshaun Watson that you don't get anywhere else. Good nutritional takes on the show. That is our goal. No empty calories, of course. And there's a long conversation, myself, Steve Cavendish, we had with Butch Spirit on, of course, who his nickname is Captain Room Nights is his nickname. How many room nights do I have booked in Nashville? That's all he cares about. And so CMA Fest this weekend, but also a lot of Titans news. So I'll give you some updates on that. That is on Lamestream Sports coming out on Friday. So make sure you check out that show. I'll give you some highlights from that, and we can discuss the latest on the Titans Stadium. So just some light news, and notes here today on the show, Zach. Football and other F words. Broadway Sports Media, check out all the other shows, turn on the notifications, jump in the comment section. We'll get to all your questions today. Show as well. So, we good?
We're good. I think we're good.
Ready to go?
I just fixed our audio issues. If you were in there, I forgot, for whatever reason, didn't automatically detect that we were on Mixcast 4. So it was all me.
So that's your people then?
That was my people.
Your people. Okay. Mixcast.
Well, we have the private chat. So that was me.
Old Mixcast 4.
The old Mixcast 4.
All right. So
apologies to those that actually stayed with us for the first 3 minutes of all that.
So nobody heard a single word that we said?
They heard us. They just heard us through my laptop.
Oh, okay.
It was through my laptop.
Okay. Welcome to the show. Already in progress here.
But they heard us.
That's good. That's good.
So we don't have to repeat anything.
So media was allowed to be at Titans OTAs on Tuesday this week.
Allowed.
We were permitted.
A lot of people get to go to a lot of other teams allow their media to go to multiple practices, maybe even all of them.
And some teams like to share behind the scenes footage to grow a bond with their audience and their crowd. We'll get to we got some theories on who is in control of all this. Why does it happen? I've got a story from practice as well that hopefully doesn't get me in trouble. We'll tell that in a second. But Rob Moore, the wide receivers coach, basically just acknowledges that Traylon Burks has asthma, and which I believe you said on this show a month ago that this is a thing he had at Arkansas. This is something he's dealt with. He had an inhaler at practice. Like this isn't
Well, I
It
mean,
doesn't
what
feel
do
like new
people
news.
think was in the inhaler? Like, I guess that was the thing, because even you said, we can't really jump to that conclusion, or we're not allowed to, or whatever. The media,
HIPAA.
it's. But I'm thinking, why can't you? Because it's an inhaler. What do you think is in it? Do you think it's filled with Kool-Aid? Like, what do you think was in the inhaler that it was totally deemed irrelevant by
Vodka
most of the
shots.
local media?
It's Maurice Claret, just vodka
Just
shots.
vodka shots. Is that how he did his vodka?
No, remember he put Grey Goose into a water bottle.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he was drinking Grey Goose on the practice field for the Broncos when Mike Shanahan drafted him. Was like, I could fix him, and no, you can't. You're right. I just sort of was,
and you're not the only one, but a lot of people were like, well, it's kind of irresponsible for us to assume that it's asthma, but what else would an inhaler be used for?
Well, and again, I'm not a doctor. That's
Right.
kind of where I side is. Just
I'm a doctor. I play one on TV.
True. You're people. I just sort of err on the side of like, well, let's just let them tell us what it is, and then when they tell us, we can scream and our heads can explode on Twitter, and then we're there.
Stoney has it right here. It was filled with the breath of wild boars.
That's probably pretty disgusting. Some hot, stinky breath. None of you have kids, but those of you watching and listening that do have kids, you can tell when your kids are sick by their breath. It's really weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
It gets really disgusting, and I feel like I would describe my sick daughters with the breath of wild boars. I feel like that's what. Now I have something to explain when my wife asks what's wrong with her daughter. I say she's got wild boar breath, babe. I don't know what to tell you.
Don't know what to tell you.
So I just think now this is to your point about how I was kind of careful about it. He has a thing. They've said he has the thing. They will manage the thing professionally with medical experts. And
they've always known about the thing.
And they've always known about the thing.
Which, it's asthma. It's not like I said on the podcast, it's not like he had a degenerate bone disease. I hate that the Titans have created, and they have created the storm, whether on purpose or not. They have created the shroud of secrecy that separates them from the rest of the world. They basically, what was that show on CBS where I
haven't watched network television
around the world. This is like a long time ago.
I have not watched it.
It's before Breaking Bad. That's how long ago it was. Okay. Jericho, maybe, I think is what it was. I don't know, but they got a force field around their place, and so I don't blame people for not wanting to just assume that's asthma. That's why I'm here for. I'm here to be the voice of the media who have to tiptoe around the Titan Stadium because they do listen to everything, right? I mean, we saw John Robinson call out Buck on his workout ethic and stuff like that. So in my mind, I'm thinking, of course you guys can't really just come out and say, well, it's obviously got to be asthma, even though it obviously was.
Yeah, and all I was doing was just waiting for them to tell us something like that because somebody's personal medical information is, there's some level of like, you tell us and we'll just say, okay, and then go from there. It's just not a thing because you can manage it and it's just asthma. And I don't know if that ties into.
It's not like he just got asthma after he was drafted. Like, I think that's the thing.
One day of rookie camp and he got asthma.
I think that's the thing that's kind of really people are missing is that they're like, well, I mean, this just feels like it came out of nowhere. No, asthma is something that you can grow out of. It's not something that you necessarily grow into. Especially an athlete wouldn't grow into asthma. You can develop allergies.
You sound like an expert.
Well, I had asthma.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I grew out of my asthma and I had allergies and my allergies changed. I used to not be allergic to cats. And now I'm allergic to cats, but I'm not really cat allergic.
Would you want a cat though?
I had cats growing up and we had to get rid of them.
I mean,
we literally had to get rid of cats that I had.
am anti-cat. Now it's funny. So I had asthma for 2 summers. But it was only because of specific trees in Florida where I used to go to my grandparents' house and I got really bad asthma attacks. And I never had asthma any other time. So it's very personal. It's very unique to the individual. Like you said, it can change and evolve. Again, this is already too much asthma talk. Like we're going deep in the weeds on asthma here.
I think it's just important for people not to freak out.
Yes. It doesn't mean anything.
Right. It doesn't mean he's had asthma. He's had asthma back at Arkansas.
Doesn't mean anything.
Does not mean anything. That's what inhalers are for. Inhalers are for to open up your airwaves to your lungs, to get your breath going, get your breathing going, and get oxygen to your body. So guess what? It happens almost automatically. And guess what? He will be, if he has to step out for a snap or two, he will be in a snap or two later. It won't be like AJ Brown hurting his hamstring or something and he misses the rest of the game.
Right. Now, to your point, last episode or maybe 2 episodes ago, and you touched on a little bit on F words this week as well. Check it out. I think there's no reason to be concerned about the conditioning side of him until we need him to
Right.
be in condition. So
Yeah.
like that we've kind of covered that as well. So like the asthma is not a thing because it can be handled by medical professionals. And the conditioning thing, he's a big dude. He plays big, and we'll deal with that when camp shows up. If he's still out of shape, then we can talk about it. If the games start and he's out of shape, then we can talk about it. There's a time and a place for that conversation. Let me float a theory, and you kind of touched on this on your show with Lebowski as well, which is I think so. There's been some specific things about how this Treylon Burks thing has unfolded with the press and with practice and access. So Tuesday, Treylon Burks doesn't practice after his best practice the week before, right? And Rob Moore tells us that he's got asthma, and then Burks doesn't play the day that we're all there, okay? The week before, there was a couple of drills where all the receivers, and they all, just to paint a picture here, we have to stand on the sidelines by the facility, and all the players, the receivers generally do all the drills right in front of on that sideline. So the quarterbacks are out in the field, the running backs are down here, the offensive and defensive linemen are down by the lake, by the over here on the end of the field, like not on a field, like they're sort of in a practice area. But the receivers are always right in front of us. And Treylon Burks was being told, not like ordered or yelled or anything, but like they clearly were skipping drills with him. But they did it right in front of us. And so it was like, we're going to run one route this way, then we're going to shift to the other side, and Burks, you're just going to walk. You're not going to run the drill. You're just going to go to the other side. And so I am knowing Vrabel the way we know Vrabel, which is Belichick, Saban, protect state secrets at all costs, not going to give you anything, and Robinson to some degree as well. I think there's a chance that they're doing all of this on purpose.
Well, I mean,
they are trolling all of us.
I think that Tuesday was specifically for Paul Kaharski.
I know you think that.
And listen, you can
That's
say
giving
it's
one
not,
guy too much credit, but
no, you could say that it's not, but it is highly, highly suspect that they decided to do it on the day that he even put out an article saying he wasn't even going to be near his phone and check his phone, and they let the state secrets unfold.
Yeah, again, there's just every single step of the way, there's been these little things that they know we're going to react to. And what's interesting is I don't think they realize that that's good for our business generally.
Yeah.
Like when we've got all this stuff to react to and overreact to. And even though we don't like the empty calories, a lot of people do. And that drives a lot of conversations that are fairly stupid. So let me float another theory, because I think my personal opinion is that the way that they grant access or lack thereof is a John Robinson, Mike Vrabel driven decision. That's my opinion. I'm not reporting that.
Well, you have to think it is at least a partnership in that, just because look at when it was Mike Mularkey and John Robinson. Even Mike Mularkey, when at his pressers, he was giving you guys more information.
Oh, you couldn't get him to shut up.
You can, yeah, right. So I think this is a joint venture between Robinson and Vrabel.
Yes,
because we have seen them be on the same page on almost everything in American football.
So here's an anecdote from practice on Tuesday that I think indicates that, number one, they absolutely listen to and pay attention to everything.
Yes.
They all have rabbit.
I know for sure they
all have rabbit ears.
All the articles and stuff they get. He gets, I know at least Vrabel, and I think Robinson does too, gets any article that's written in the last 24 hours, he gets every morning.
Yes. And the Preds do this too. It's not unusual for this to be a thing. And so we're all standing there watching practice, and there's a media area where they hold the press conferences, which is called the media area. Like that's where you can stand. You can stand in the media area, or you can stand on the sideline, or you can stand in the end zone. You can't stand, like there's very specific places where you can stand. And in the media area, while we're all watching practice, I think there was somebody down there in the press that was like talking to a player. And we all hear somebody yelling from above upstairs, which is in the new facility. And somebody's just screaming like, media area, media area, media area. And that was an indication for Titans PR to go over there and kind of like, why is that guy talking to a player? Kind of thing. Gotcha. Right. So I'm not telling the story to say that anybody did anything wrong. If you're standing in the media area and you're media, you're not really doing anything wrong.
Right.
But it shows it was John Robinson who was yelling. And so it shows that he's paying very close attention to every tiny detail, and that it shows that I think Robinson and Vrabel are the two driving forces behind their philosophy of their approach to the media, which is why it could be a total troll job that they're releasing all these little things and having Burke skip a draft, skip a drill. I just think there's a chance it's all done on purpose to mess with us.
What do you think there is to gain by this, though? Like, is it
It's fun
just
for them?
Well, no. Talking about the whole secrecy issue, you guys are only coming to one practice.
Nothing.
During training camp. I mean, they have to think that they're gaining something by that.
Well, so
Because if you look at the Rams have like opened up the floodgates on everything. They, invite media. Media loves the players. They get to know the players and all this stuff. And I feel like there's a lack. There's a little bit of a line that I hesitate to cross, right? Because there's the Marcus line where you don't know anything about the player really at all because they're not on social media. You don't hardly ever get to talk to them unless it's outside of football situation. And then you have the AJ Brown where you're getting way too much. Maybe even Taylor Lewan and Will Compton could be on that, but you're getting way too much from them on social media.
Yeah.
But I feel like we are, as fans and maybe even media, we have a lack of getting to know these players on the field, getting a lack of information on basically what goes on at training camp and practices week in and week out. When you see, Colts media, you see Eagles, you see the Rams and all these other media teams, they're all getting all this good information daily to their fans. So what is there's no competitive advantage because even bad teams are doing it.
No,
good teams are doing it.
And they actually say like the competitive advantage is kind of like the term, and I don't think that's the exact term that's in the emails, but like these are the things you cannot report on, like formations and route combinations.
That stuff makes sense.
And like, so if they're running a route, and again, this is not what they did. Right. So I'm just making this up. If they've got a 2 tight end set to the split and they're running a crossing route with a rub or a pick or whatever, like I could see how they don't want that type of thing
totally makes sense.
To be out there. Oh, they're really working on this in the summer or whatever. Like, I don't think they want that. But if you look at college coaches are, I say this not directed at Mike Vrabel or John Robinson, but I think football coaches at a high pressure situation, which would qualify Vrabel and Nick Saban and all these other guys, they are paranoid, schizophrenic egomaniacs. Like, you kind of have to be that to be in that job. And I think they feel like there is something. College coaches don't have to give you any access.
Right.
There's never even a moment where you're at practice. Sam Pittman did actually open up practice in the spring this year for Arkansas media. But I just think they feel like there's some level of control that if they can keep everything in-house, they have some mental advantage. And I don't see why.
I think it's they don't trust the players because if you think about the third mystery field, the third field or whatever it's called,
which is a big dirt pile right now.
Yeah, which is whatever, where the injured players kind of go run. And if you take a video of them, you get yelled at and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's because, they're over here coaching. The coaches are over here coaching. That's where John Robinson's focus is at too. There's nobody with that player, right? Except for maybe like a strength and conditioning guy or something.
Yeah, it's not practice technically.
Right.
Which I think is if you can report on practice, you can report on.
Well, I think it's just what I'm saying is I think it's because they don't think that those players they're afraid that those players are going to say something they don't want out.
I would go with that for the college kids and for the rookies in the NFL. Like, you want to see how Roger McCreary or Malik Willis or these rookies can like, you want to train them a little bit, right? You want to, frankly, this is probably where college football fails miserably, which is if you allowed access to the college kids, they'd be better prepared for questions in the NFL.
Right.
And so it kind of feeds itself a little bit. You have to get them prepared. So you sort of insulate them a little bit when they first get here because they're not prepared to talk to the media because the college coach is even worse at protecting them. And it actually does the athlete a disservice because then they're not learning the skills. There's a life skills, right? To have a good interview and good communication. Like, that's a good life skill to earn. Or to learn. I think it's there is just a paranoid schizophrenic mentality with all coaches of any sport. They hear everything that's said about them. They think everything is a Russian spy. Like, everything's a Russian spy.
That's what it feels like.
And they just don't and they have the control. So why not use it? And I think that's where they come from. Getting worked up because a tweet got posted 10 minutes early of who was or was not at practice in the middle of June seems silly, like a silly use of energy. But I think it's just
especially if you're going to turn around and fat shame them.
That's true. I think that's baked into the job. Honestly, like, I don't have a better answer for that. I think in particular, Vrabel cut from the Belichick cloth with Robinson. I think they just are extra this, if that makes sense. and it's their prerogative. They can do what they want. And
they want to do.
I think Amy Adams Strunk has done a great job building a relationship and being out in the community and sort of being accessible. I think having players be accessible would be great. I think Kevin Byard's very accessible. I think Derrick Henry's being more visible now as he's grown into his personality. So I don't know. I think
to go to Texas or wherever.
Yeah, right. I think you're doing your players and their brands a disservice by not showcasing them more. And I think you could build a relationship with your fans. Now, if you want to troll the media, go for it.
Oh, I'm all for that.
I think it's hilarious. Like, go for it. Like that. Literally.
And I am 100% bought in that they are. I'm
kind of like literally the first thing I said when I walked out there was like, "Oh, you mean the day we're here, we find out that he has asthma and he's not practicing?"
Yeah. Why couldn't they just say and the ratings thing? Why couldn't they just say that last
right?
Time?
They
were asked about it 30 fucking times.
Right. And I think there's an element of all the stuff we just talked about, and then at the end of the day, JR and Vrabel are sitting there like clinking glasses of whiskey, just laughing at all of us running around like a bunch of morons.
Well, I think Vrabel's a Busch Light guy.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Okay, I know he's definitely a beer drinker.
Yeah,
there's no question about that. All right, so let's get into a slightly more serious topic, and that is the Deshaun Watson news. The New York Times, congratulations for actually doing good reporting on this because it doesn't feel like the Browns did. Or the
NFL doing anything. I mean, that's my thing.
So if you want to read the story and follow along, you can go read the story. It's not like extremely difficult to read. It's not like that graphic, but it definitely paints the picture of who Deshaun Watson is and what he's been doing. And I wanted to ask a question. This, for those of you listening and watching, I think is important. I would love to hear some feedback. But Zach, I think to me, what it raises a question on in our society is we forgive a lot of stuff for talent. Like Tom Cruise is batshit crazy, but we are watching his movies like crazy, right? Like we are watching Top Gun is like done.
Is he batshit crazy in a bad way? I mean, like, is he harming anybody?
Oh, no. I'm not.
Yeah.
So to be clear, I'm not comparing any of these different things here, right? I mean, I'll get to Michael Jackson. That's worse, I guess, worse than Deshaun Watson. I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to. If we start measuring sins, we get into trouble.
Right. Here. I don't equate Tom Cruise. I agree. Tom Cruise jumping on a couch 20 years ago.
Well, I'm more this. I think there's more to Tom Cruise off the field.
I don't know. From everything you hear about, I mean, I read this extensive, not to get down a Tom Cruise rabbit hole here.
Let's do it.
I read an extensive article from the people in the cast on this new Top Gun movie, the guys, and he is a guy that is trying to train up the next generation of actors. And it's not just, he made them all go through extensive flight training. I mean, they had to drive all these jets or fly all these jets, but they say they now feel comfortable enough where they go to him with acting questions or, hey, I'm in this movie.
So he's demanding, but
I mean, I know that the COVID thing, I think it's
kind of crazy, right?
Well, I think he's eccentric.
How about this? Point is, I don't really agree with almost anything Tom Cruise personally believes in, but I will love Top Gun.
Yeah.
Right? How about Greg Hardy? Throws his girlfriend on a pile of guns.
And nobody likes him, though.
Nobody likes him, but
everybody wants to see his ass get kicked.
But if he has 10 sacks for the Cowboys, he's still playing.
Yeah, but that ended up flaming out on him, backfiring on him.
Like Michael Jackson, we still play his music at parties. Yeah. I'm building up to a question here. Which is that you as a fan have the right to choose what you're going to do because there's no criminal charges here for Deshaun Watson. There's not going to be.
Maybe not.
I mean, right now, the grand jury did not.
Right. Just the new cases. I know Tony Busby said that they may not go criminal because obviously the 80 or the defending attorney, Rusty Hardin, kind of went behind the scenes and did some illegal stuff, but how about they kind of feel maybe fruitless. But
are Dolphins fans not going to cheer when Tyreek Hill scores a touchdown because he punched his pregnant girlfriend in the stomach?
Oh yeah, they don't care about that.
Do you see what I'm So my point is that we as a society a lot of times compartmentalize and pick and choose the parts of a person that we love and root for and find joy from, and then on the other side where we despise and hate. Like again, I will play Michael Jackson music at my house for my kids. I don't like how it makes me feel, but I like the music, so I try to compartmentalize it, right? So my question is, if you have the right as a fan to control this, you have agency. What do you do if you're a Browns fan and you're desperate for success and want to see a good football team and you've been paying thousands of dollars for season tickets for years? What do you do as a fan if you despise Deshaun Watson and his behavior, which most of us do? What do you do?
I throw a celebration that I get to pick a new team. Like me personally, if it came out that Malik Willis did this, or if Derrick Henry did this, and he stayed on the Titans for a long period of time, because I guess I used Malik Willis because he's the next quarterback, right? And
I think Derrick Henry's a good one. He's beloved by everyone because, again, Deshaun Watson.
But the problem is that Derrick
beloved by
Henry's
everyone.
not long for here, right? I mean, like the
enough.
Browns are tied to Deshaun Watson for 5 years or whenever because it's a fully guaranteed contract. So it's a little bit different when you're talking about maybe
And you did it
a year and
after.
a half. Right.
And you gave him the contract after you
Right.
knew about all this stuff.
See, that's the thing to me is that it's not just the player, your organization failed you. And
Oh my God. And the Texans?
and the Texans are now implicated
Holy
because of the
shit.
security guard and all this other stuff. That
Well,
apparently
providing NDAs, providing him a hotel room and
the
access
security
to clubs.
provided the NDA. They provide the hotel room. According to local reports, they provide the hotel room to every Titans player. Or sorry, every Texans player.
Well, and for those that don't know, like the Titans have this too. Like you have a driver available to you at any point,
Yeah.
which is why you should never ever be drinking and driving ever. But like as an NFL player, you have even less reasons. I don't think that star quarterbacks in the NFL have a difficult time getting dates. So it's like none of this makes any sense. But I want to focus on like the fans' choice of
In this particular
how
situation,
do you act.
in this particular situation, if I was a Browns fan, I would leave the team because first off, why do I need to put myself through any more pain for an organization that doesn't care about women?
But again, this gets to, and you know this is what's going to happen.
There's Browns fans.
This
that
gets to
defend
the
it.
Browns fans that when as soon as they're 7-1, they don't care.
Well, they'll never be 7-1, so that's a good thing because I think that Deshaun Watson's at least this season going to be out, and I think in all honesty he should be
The whole year, you think he's out?
Yeah,
I was going to say like 6 to 8 games.
if they go 6 to 8 games, because this is not we're talking about 24 different instances.
Oh,
Not one instance,
Yeah.
right? So this isn't Ezekiel Elliott's one instance. This isn't Ben Roethlisberger's one instance. This is 24 instances. And if I was the NFL, I would be looking at a guy that I would be saying, first off, you have 2 years or you're suspended, because I would be punishing the team as well through all this for giving them that.
well,
because
and the Texans too. Like,
Yeah.
there should be some culpability there.
I think that for 2 years or the when the lawsuits are all done and over and tried with, and then whichever one's longer, because then I
Okay.
may be adding on to that because I think if
I
they
agree
do
with
6 to 8
you.
games, I think they have a huge, massive issue on their hands, and I think that's what may be taking them so long is they're trying to figure out what is the punishment that we can give that makes the NFL look like we care about women.
well, and which
Because 6 to 8's not going to do it.
no, I agree with you on that. And I
It's
think
not going to cut.
I mean, personally, again, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I would not. I'd want to root for a different team. I
that's
would not want him to
also-
be my quarterback. I'd want to
I
see a
think
year-long
I'm
suspension.
looking at ESPN covering this. Mina Kimes, the voices of the strong women in
She
the
did a great
media.
job, by the
Oh,
way.
she does. The voices of the strong women in media. If he only gets 6 to 8 games, it's going to be a shitstorm that the NFL is not prepared for.
Yeah, but they just kind of the NFL boat just sails right through every
But this
shitstorm.
isn't going to go away because by the time
goes-
those 6 to 8 games are done and their suspension is technically would be over in this hypothetical situation, those lawsuits are still going to be out there. This story is not going away within a year.
Well, and this is where I give credit to the New York Times for actually keeping it alive and like
Right.
doing some actual research into this
Exactly.
and investigating it so we can know more about what happens. I think there is a choice we all individually as fans have to make almost all the time, whether it's music, movies, or athletes. Like again, Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon broke a girl's face in college. Cincinnati Bengals fans, I don't see them like protesting him. Now, again, he went through the legal ramifications of it and came out the other side. And this is why what's
and I guess there's got to be room for change, right?
that's what I'm saying. Like,
But let me say something about this about Deshaun Watson. There's no coming back from this for Deshaun Watson in my eyes. There's nothing he can do short of he could even try to push me out of a bus, and I still would never forgive him at this point because you're talking about a guy that is
push you out of a bus,
or push me away from the bus.
save your life.
Save me from a bus.
Save your life. All right.
Totally derailed my thoughts. Thank you.
Sorry.
In this serious conversation that we're having, but in my mind, he's a psychopath, sociopath, whatever the term you want to use, because he is dead behind the eyes. He sat there and said that, okay, well, I'm only going for massages, and that's what I want. I want massages. On the deposition looking, and when they are pressing him on why did you choose this person that just got out of massage school, he going, well, the experience, isn't a high priority for me. But if you're only going for massages, then why isn't that a high priority for you? 66 women.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah, in 66 women in 17 months, it's almost one woman a week, a different woman almost every week
I know.
for a massage therapist. I'm still going to the same chiropractor I've had for 2 years now.
Find one that works, and
you stick with it. There's no coming back now. That's for me personally.
That's my
and
question.
for the fans that even Titans fans that may defend them, unfollow them. Don't care about you. Don't want you to listen to my stuff. You don't deserve to listen to my stuff, because in my mind, you are supporting a guy that is just he's a despicable slimeball, scuzz bucket, terrible, terrible person that really should have got criminal charges pressed against or filed against him. And he should be in jail. Because if Mike Vick should be in jail for just being at a house where there's dog fighting,
it's more complicated than that. But I agree.
Well,
there was he was made an example of.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think that.
How about Calvin Ridley? Calvin Ridley suspended for a full year for placing a bet.
Right.
and this could be about the same, maybe, if we're saying a year.
I think it's see, that's the thing about the NFL's punishment policy that I have an issue with, is that you go back and look at Ezekiel Elliott, Ray Rice, where that video was at.
2 games.
You look at
right?
Ben Roethlisberger. You look at all this stuff, Greg Hardy, even all this stuff, and then you turn around and you place a bet and you get a year.
I mean, again, Tyreek Hill is the one that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Like, again, the track record of behavior for Tyreek Hill is absurd.
Right.
And yet the NFL, I don't think he's ever been suspended by the NFL for anything.
Yeah. I'm petitioning all my leagues to not allow Deshaun Watson to be drafted
in the fantasy league.
In the fantasy league.
Well, if you're the owner, can't you? If you run the league, can't you?
Yeah. Well, I'm not. Out? Yeah, but I'm not that guy.
Okay.
I have to petition.
Okay. There's a formal process.
Yeah. My thing is that,
man,
I cannot. I understand that fans are fanatics. And you can even look at the political parties. There are people that blindly follow Republicans, even though what the Republicans can be doing is wrong. There are people that blindly follow Democrats, even though that they may disagree deep down, but they don't care because that's a Democrat. I'm voting Democrat no matter what. I'm rooting for a quarterback no matter what they do, even if it's terrible. That is a fanatic's choice, and a fanatic's probably built into their DNA. But in my mind, I don't think any self-respecting man, woman, or child can look at the Cleveland Browns seriously and say, that is my team. I'm wearing their jerseys, and I'm proud to be a Browns fan because I've been one for 20 years. Let me tell you something. Just because you've been one for 20 years doesn't mean you can't change.
So I completely agree. And Stoney, a couple of comments here. Stoney Keeley says, Steve McNair is an interesting name to think about in this conversation. And then Kenneth brings up similarities between Tiger Woods and Deshaun Watson. I do not think there are similarities between Tiger Woods and Deshaun Watson. I think Steve McNair and Tiger Woods
I think
had very similar lifestyles. That is not criminal behavior. That is not crossing a line that we obviously believe and have seen.
Drinking and driving, criminal. But I mean, let's not equate. I think equating Tiger Woods to 24 plus
I guess
acts.
I guess that's true.
I think, but what I'm saying is, I think you're talking about 24 or more acts, because we know at least that there are more acts that people that did not file suits, according to the Ginny Ventress reporting. So it's not just 24 people that are women that are affected. It's more than 24 women that are affected. Only 24 have filed lawsuits. That's not the same as what either of those guys went through.
Here's my what's the case study for Nashville fans, though? Like, what's the case study that even comes close to matching this? Like, Mike Ribeiro, for example, played for the Preds and was a really bad dude, and they signed him to a contract, and then David Poile had to answer questions about that.
Yeah,
like, this is a guy who had a weird. I don't want to use the wrong word here, but there was a whole thing with the babysitter, and he was not a good dude. And they signed him, and I just don't know who was the
Preds fan or Preds player recently?
Well, Austin Watson is another one who got into
that would probably be the closest, besides maybe Pac-Man Jones, but I feel like that's not even relatable. I feel like
it raises really. I just don't. I think
there's nothing right now.
You have more faith in humanity, I think, than I do.
Well, I'm not saying that they are. Okay. I don't think that they will. I'm saying that they should. I think that's the difference, is that I don't think that there is an instance or a player that I can think of that assaulted more than 24 women in a span of 17 months. Sexually assaulted.
It's a pretty hard.
There's just I don't think that there is a player that's done. There's been players that have cheated on their wives.
Yeah, and
there's been players that have had sex with lots of women. I mean, how many did Wilt Chamberlain have or something? There's
Bill
yeah, or
I think it might have been Wilt. Either way, I think Magic Johnson did all right for himself.
Yeah, I mean that there's differences in all these things. There's nothing that I feel like outside of murder that has been as I think disgusting of behavior that is clearly, if you just go and the depositions are available on Twitter. You can watch them. You go watch those depositions and it is chilling. It is like watching a Netflix documentary about a serial killer.
So Stoney Keeley says, at the end of the day, it's just sports. If you're going to sacrifice a bit of what you stand for as a person just because of the team you root for, then that's some weak shit.
Fully agree.
I fully agree. We fully agree. I think it's easy for us to sit here and say that when we don't have to make that choice. Like, I don't really like if I was a Packers fan and I don't agree with anything Aaron Rodgers stands for at all, I can compartmentalize watching him throw touchdowns on Sunday and like disagreeing with his personal
because he's
beliefs
not hurting
and stance.
anybody
Right.
besides himself.
Well, I don't want to talk about public health, but your point is valid.
I mean, even if there's no Aaron Rodgers, public health is still going to be an issue. I mean, I guess that's
I totally agree. So I guess, but there's varying levels of this, right? Like there's Michael Jackson, and then there's Tiger Woods, and then like there's a DUI versus, like what Michael Jackson did.
Yeah.
And we still, as a society, listen to Michael Jackson music. And is that the wrong behavior? Like, and again, this is not, I don't want to hear the phrase cancel culture either. Like, that's not what this is. If Deshaun Watson gets kicked out of the league or loses his contract, this isn't cancel culture. It's consequences for bad behavior. Like that's different. So I don't know I feel like you have to make that stand on your own.
Well, yeah, that's the only way it's like the and I'm going to equate something to the Madden game, but people complain about Madden, right? But the same people who complain about Madden and the game glitches and stuff, the only reason they know about the game glitches and the game plays because they bought Madden and they complain about it every year. I haven't bought Madden since I think when Gronk was on the cover was the last one. But my point is, it sucked. I was done with Madden. They're not getting any more of my money. Now, I understand that there are weak-willed people out there. I mean, the majority, I would say, Americans do not have willpower or the fortitude to make a stand. But let me say this. I am out on Deshaun Watson. I would love it if he went to prison and never played in the league again. If they came out and said that he would never play in the league, I would maybe become I wouldn't become a Browns fan because those people, they need to kick those people out of the Browns.
And what about Baker? What about Baker Mayfield through all this? Like, what the hell?
Baker's doing the right thing. Stay off social media.
Yeah.
Stay off social media. And when they come back calling, say, well, you got Jacoby Brissett. Have a nice time.
Yeah. Have fun.
Yeah.
Either way, it's hard to read. It's hard to understand. And I just thought the conversation that I find interesting is that, and this is no different than a company standing up for something you don't agree with, right? Like it does. You have agency as a consumer with your time and money to decide what you spend it on. And you have to decide, like, again, I go always straight to the Michael Jackson thing because I struggle with that. Like, I still love the music. I still want my kids to hear the music and learn about how important his music was. But at the same time, when it's time for my children to learn this kind of stuff, we're going to have to tell them about the other side of this.
Right.
And so does that mean that we're doing the wrong thing as parents? Are we doing the right thing as fans of his music? Like, how should I feel about this? And this is a little different because it's like right now in our faces, and he's actually going through the deposition, and it's like he's alive and can actually take punishment for something he's done. I think it's very complicated mental gymnastics that you have to do as a fan of something that you love deeply.
Life's just complicated. I mean, there is no perfect solution, but you're right. You can control what you can control, and what I can control is that I only hope the worst for Deshaun Watson.
Have you ever drafted Tyreek Hill on a fantasy team?
Actually, I don't think I have.
Good for you.
Not because of.
So you walk the walk, huh?
Well, not because of the reasons.
But I guess I raised the question. Then what's the difference?
I think basically
Tyreek Hill's clearly a kind of a piece of shit. So I'm not the only one in the league still playing right now, by the way. That's a bad person.
Right.
That's done illegal things.
I think I hate to, again, you're weighing sins and you're putting me on the spot to do something you said we don't want to do on the show.
That's true.
But I think Deshaun Watson is the biggest piece of shit. This is what I could say.
Okay.
Deshaun Watson is the biggest piece of shit in sports by far, bar none. There's nobody that right now that is close to what he is as far as a terrible human being that has affected more than 66 people's lives.
Okay. I mean, I can't argue with that. That's sort of a statement of fact.
He's a sexual terrorist.
I think it's going to be very interesting because there's no criminal charges. That if he pays his price in the civil court, which is probably a closed NDA, with like a lot of money being distributed, the league suspends him for a year. There's no more incidents, and he comes back next year and he plays. I don't think Browns fans are going to stop rooting for him, and I think the league. I think some Brown fans have. I don't think all Browns fans will, and that would be the same for every fan base across America in every sport. Yeah, and it'd be the same for people that love certain TV shows, love movies, this and that. Yeah,
it's because people view these other celebrities and stuff as transactional items.
Yeah, we forgive a lot of sins for entertainment and talent. Like if you have an extraordinary amount of talent, you will keep getting chances no matter how badly you screw up. And that's ultimately what this is about. If Deshaun Watson was EJ Manuel, we wouldn't be talking about it.
Yep.
But Deshaun Watson is one of the best quarterbacks in the world. So that's why he's getting $230 million guaranteed or whatever it is. So
that's because the Browns are fucking idiots.
Well, he would be worth it if he wasn't such a piece of trash.
Yeah.
So, all right. I don't know how we're going to segue into that conversation. And now we're going to discuss some Titans Stadium news on the show. So myself, Steve Cavendish, we had a chance to sit down with Butch Speardon, who runs basically everything in Nashville. He's been in a lot of rooms and a lot of meetings for about 45 minutes. Lamestream Sports Podcast coming out on Friday. Check it out. He gave us a couple of details. One of them is that August and September is when all this information is going to come out. So FIFA next week is going to announce whether or not we become a host city or not. And what he said in the conversation was part of the reason how they're going to win the bid from FIFA, which I'm not sure they're going to, but they're trying, is to keep the Titan Stadium intact and built and managed and run so that they can use it at the same time as building the new stadium, which is in between the old one and the interstate, right? I don't know how that works exactly. If we don't get the host bid next week, maybe that changes, and we can follow up with that. But that's an interesting nugget. August is the time frame. We're about 6-8 weeks out from getting the actual financial details of the plan. How much of that is tax diversion? How much of that is state? All this other stuff, and that they've got 100 acres that they are going to. It is every single inch of it is going to be developed. Like I'm trying to think of another area, like you know how south of Broadway has developed once they built the Music City Center,
right?
And all of a sudden there's hotels in the street and a roundabout and some weird art sculptures and like all this other stuff. Like think about every inch for 100 acres on the east bank of the river, and think of every inch of it being developed, whether it being hotels, housing, parks, green space, hopefully retail, restaurants, you name it. It's going to be their new roads, new access points. It is going to be huge. It is going to be massive. And there's going to be a huge fight about it coming in about, again, Butch said August, September is when we're going to get the information. It is going to be a big fight.
Well, I mean, you already have like these sycamore think tanks, saying that, they're not going to make enough money and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, well, and because what they use is to average across Tennessee stadiums all the way across. Nashville, no offense to Memphis and no offense to Knoxville or Chattanooga, Nashville is totally different than any of those. Those guys are bringing the average down. You can't use
that's true.
That average and say, well, the average cost or the average income made by these facilities, if you're using all these major cities and you're using all these different stadiums and your thing, use Nashville. And Nashville generates money.
Now it's funny you mentioned the Sycamore one. I do know for a fact that they are independently funded, so they're not funded by either side of this. They're not funded by Nashville wanting to spend money. They're not funded by politicians that don't want this to be.
Well, I will say some of their senior leadership in the article says that the senior leadership does lean Republican.
And that's what I mean is the two parties may not be political in this.
Yeah.
Like left, right, Republican,
Right.
Democrat. The two parties are city spending on city, and then council people representing citizens that don't think that is a good steward of our resources, let's say. And Butch said this to us. He goes, "We have not managed growth well in this city."
Right.
That's a really good admission from him on that, because it's pretty obvious,
Right,
that we haven't. It hasn't worked for everybody.
and then also this study doesn't take into account the costs of repairing the stadium, and doesn't take into account, I think it was what basically the leverage the team has over the city as far as money for repairs and all that stuff, or what money owed, or whatever is the correct term.
Right.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, just stay out of it, Sycamore.
Well, it's their job. I mean, that's what they do. They're a
Find a
policy.
new job, find a new hobby.
They're a policy think tank, and I know a few of them. So, what's interesting is he also said, Butch said to us that, and this is a quote, "Affordable housing is a big part of the conversation." I'll believe that when it's on paper.
Yeah. And what is affordable housing now? Like, let's be honest here. I mean, nothing is. We don't even have affordable gas.
No, and that now I will say that affordable housing as a term has been weaponized, and politicized by certain people. Affordable housing is just like homes that people can afford, like that a family can move into Nashville, because this is the issue, and this is, I think, the concern about the stadium development tied into downtown. I moved into downtown at the Encore in 2009 as a low income buyer.
Right.
Like I had to be below a certain number of dollars revenue per year salary. So for me to purchase a home, 20% of the building was designated as quote unquote affordable housing.
Right.
And I think people have, again, that term has been weaponized to mean a different thing. It doesn't mean what people think it means when you hear it. It just means creating access to, let's say a young person wants to move to Nashville and buy a house and live downtown and work downtown. There's no place for that to happen right now. So this is the fight that's going to happen. It's going to be business and spending on development with big sports fans probably on this side of the aisle. Aisle's the wrong word, argument. And over here, it's going to be city council people that are up for election next year, that are representing people that don't feel like it's benefiting them, that we're going to spend however many millions of dollars. Now, the easy answer is this is money we would not have had without the development. So It's new sales tax revenue. It's not affecting my children or roads or whatever. There will be a spend. We've talked about this. There will be a dollar figure. That's what we're going to get in about 6-8 weeks. And that dollar figure is going to come out. And once that plan comes out, that is when we take sides.
Right.
And have a big argument. And here's why the timing's happening the way it is. They want it all to be done before the election cycle for next year, when the mayoral race comes up. So it's fascinating to study and to track and to monitor. There's not a ton of new stuff to discuss yet, other than costs are going up every day. If you have any other questions, make sure you check out the interview, Lamestream Sports. He was very candid about CMA Fest, very candid about other events we're trying to get here, WNBA potentially coming. He one of my favorite lines from the interview was, well, we're just about $1 billion shy of getting a baseball team. which again, if you know anything about baseball and coming to the city, they're working really hard. They don't have anything yet.
Right.
You can't have a stadium without an owner.
Baseball's like one of the great, the MLB coming here is one of the great myths of Nashville right now.
I don't understand why people think it's happening. Like, don't get me wrong. I love Dave Stewart.
They're just always mentioned.
I know.
Right? I mean, like, that's the thing.
It's PR releases.
The PR.
That's all it is.
It's PR.
So great conversation. Go check that out. Otherwise, just some light topics today on the show.
Just some light topics.
Some light topics. I am excited about mandatory minicamp.
Yeah, June 14th and 15th and 16th.
That'll be interesting for the Titans.
Probably just June 14th and 15th.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they always cancel that last day, I feel like.
You do something shameless here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Athlon Sports magazines right here on newsstands, athlonsports.com. You can go buy them. I've worked there since 2007. Look at this big guy. Look at this guy. You got 296 page. Oh, look, we got somebody working a camera. How about that?
Yeah.
Rocky Top. You got the Alabama cover there. I didn't know we had a camera guy. That's pretty good. So go check it out on newsstands now. Of course, you can purchase it.
All these full colored pages.
Pay for good journalism, right?
Look at that.
There you have it.
Even CUSA's covered.
Thank God.
We need that all CUSA team.
Thank God we got that Middle Tennessee preview in there in the magazine. So, all right. Special thanks to Cast Collective for hosting us, of course, every single Monday and Thursday, 1 p.m. Make sure you turn on all the notifications. Cast_Collective on Instagram for you to book the event and the space here, this wonderful, beautiful space that we're in the heart of Nashville on Music Row. Twice in one show.
Did it.
Twice in one show. Unprecedented. Kingston Group, of course, as well, our title sponsor on the show. BuildKG.com is the website. All the other shows and places.
Well, another F words,
There you go.
every podcast platform that you got, we're there.
There you have it. BroadwaySportsMedia.com as well.
Like
and then
the
all
government, we're everywhere.
And then all the other 440 shows as well. Club and Country covering Nashville SC. Fringe Element covering the SEC. We've got Gold Standard covering the Preds. And, of course, Lamestream Sports with Butch Spiridon coming out on Fridays. So I think that just about does it for today. Otherwise, rate, review, subscribe, share the show, turn on the notifications, check out the YouTube. We appreciate you guys. We love you. Thanks for hanging out and listening. For Zach, I'm Braden. This has been a football show.